atWork Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and pay our respect to elders past and present. This podcast is being recorded in the southwest and Western Australia, which is land of the Noongar people. We'd also like to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from wherever you may be listening from. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. In this episode, I speak with Kerryn from Ktalk. Kerryn shares her lived experience with autism and the challenges she's had throughout her life by trying to engage in employment. Kerryn is the founder of Ktalk, where she delivers autism awareness training. It's her goal and her dream to be able to educate and build awareness around autism to be able to create more opportunities in the community and in the workplace for people who have been experiencing the same challenges that she's had. To find out more information about anything we discuss or to find out how you can get in touch with Kerryn, please refer to the links in the show notes. Kerryn, welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for taking the time today to come and talk to me about your employment history and, of course, your business, Ktalk.
No worries.
Could we get started? Do you mind telling us a bit about yourself, your life so far? And I understand that you were diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 30, but could you tell me about life before then? How did you go managing through school and, I guess, after school, how did you find trying to enter the workforce?
Managing life. I don't remember much of my childhood, but I do remember not being able to communicate or socialise or behave the way I do now. Autism wasn't known back in the 70s, 80s or 90s. Mum was told she was an over-anxious parent. I'll grow out of it. She was worrying too much. I'm just immature, but told to keep me at home because I wouldn't learn anything. And back in those days, I had mental institutions, and if someone had someone with a disability, they were told to put the child in the mental institution and close the door and walk away and go and have a normal child. I wasn't considered normal. I was considered normal because I would just do what everyone else did. I would follow my sister around because she was my best friend at the time, but I didn't know how to make friends. If my sister wanted an ice cream, I remember, she'd make me go and ask for it because I'd be the one who would just go and do it without realising, well, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the one to get your ice cream for you. I don't want an ice cream. Why are you making me do it? Because I was the easy target. So I just went and asked for an ice cream, and I ended up getting an ice cream and one for my sister and anyone else. And I didn't know it was okay to help yourself to a drink. I was drinking a lot of water. A lot of people were helping themselves to cordial or anything else my auntie kept in the fridge. And I never knew it was okay to make myself a cup of tea or to have a biscuit or something. It was only when Mum came home from work and I was waiting at my nana's place one day to get picked up, because if I had walked home or ridden my bike home, I was always throwing raw tomatoes or raw eggs, flour, that kind of thing, because the kids just tease me, and there's a lot to do with school. School was quite difficult. So when I was diagnosed, I felt good and I felt bad, but didn't acknowledge that I had a disability and didn't want to know I had a disability. So I sort of pretended back in those days I didn't have a disability. Disability wasn't known back in those days either. So there was a lot of things that parents didn't know. And Mum was told I would probably have autism, but the likely chances of it, and there was no early intervention either, only for those who had a lot of literal physical disabilities, kind of like cerebral palsy or those who were in those chambers, polio.
How old were you when your mum was told that you might have autism?
Oh, probably 7 or 8. Because I could never interact at school with the kids. As I said, my sister was my best friend and I followed her everywhere and I played with her at lunchtime and everything, even though we were in separate grades.
Did that impact your ability to learn and engage at school?
I had a girlfriend called Erica, and she came in grade 3 and grade 4, and we were the best of friends, and I became a tomboy. But again, I followed her around and she thought I was weird and everything like that. And when she left, I was devastated, and I never got her contact details because she was moving to a big wide suburb called St Kilda, and I had no awareness of where I was or how I could get to places because I hadn't learned that particular thing at the time. So at school, the kids teased me, and in high school it was quite difficult because I went to a technical school which they wanted to make it co-ed or co-educational in 1980. and there were 38 girls against 450 boys, and the boys were determined that the girls didn't want to participate, so it was more men versus women back in those days, but it was usually the men or the boys who would win in the end. But I was an easy target for teasing. Not only did I have my pens and pencils thrown back at me, and they were like only about half an inch wide when I'd get them all back, and they're all broken and people use them to their own advantage, etc. When I was at a woodwork class, I climbed the ladder to get on the top platform to get my model, and the ladder was taken away. So I sat there literally and couldn't ask for help because I didn't have the ability to. So I sat there for the 2 periods, missing in class, and no one sort of took any notice back then. And the teachers always went out for a smoke and a cup of tea, even in the middle of class, and they've just had a break, like a recess or a lunch, and that was the way they handled the kids. They couldn't even handle the kids, so they always went out for a smoke and a cup of coffee and everything and chatted to the other teachers, all while we were all working in the classroom sort of thing.
Oh, wow. You left your own devices.
Yeah. I was in sheet metal and I had my model smashed and I had to remake that, and I didn't pass that particular topic or things that we had to get through in that year. The thing I found, I couldn't do maths or English. I couldn't understand comprehension-wise what we had to do. I ended up having a tutor in grade 3, grade 4, one-to-one, which actually worked a lot better for me, one-to-one support. Year 8 or year 9 maths, I couldn't understand how to do numbers. It just didn't make sense to me to put this all in my head and do what other brilliant people do as well. I was more of a hands-on person. So anything to do with touch typing, home economics, driver education, that was my dream, to drive a car so quickly. And I got my license when I was 21, but it was the concentration. So I sat with Mum through a couple of lessons and everything. But I left school at year 10. I decided to do a business course back then in 1984. And I had a girl who tormented me right through from school, calisthenics, which is like a dance thing, right up until 2 years ago. So she affected my mental health. I was constantly watching around the corner where she was and what she was doing. So when I went to the same business school,
and you said up to 2 years ago, this person was tormenting you.
Yeah, correct.
So she's followed you from school into your adult life as well.
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry you had that experience.
That's okay.
So you tell me a bit about once you finished high school. It sounds like it was quite a challenging time for you, and then you moved on and done this business course. What type of challenges did you face then trying to move into the workforce, or were you able to find a job?
So we had what was called the Commonwealth Employment Service, where you could just walk into an office and bins and zillions of jobs would be printed out, and they'd have them on job board, like big boards, and you could just pick up one and just say, you all want to go for that, and the next minute you'd have an interview and the next minute you'd get a job. Yeah. And then if you get the sack, you just walk in there and just get another job. So that's how that sort of worked. So back in those days, you would go and buy the age, which would be like triple the size it is now, much like reading the size of two bits of paper, A3 size together.
Yeah, people have shifted away from the traditional newspaper these days.
Yes, definitely. And you'd make your breakfast and you'd get your texter or something, and you'd make a mental note to ring these people first thing Monday morning. And it would be hard because there was no email back then in those days. You could only use a typewriter to actually type your resume on, and you just go into town, catch the train, get a bus, whatever, come back home, and that was your interview. And you'd sit and they say, oh, we'll contact you today. You'd sit by the good old landline all day and you'd be too scared to ring them to ask them if you got the job. And you think, oh, well, I'll wait till Monday. You wait till Monday, and then, of course, you didn't get the call at all. So you'd ring up the employer and they said, oh, we've already got someone. All right. And it was like, you maybe wait by the phone all day and you're anxious and you're watching the clock tick and everything, and it comes to lunchtime, you think, yeah, surely they'd be a bit busy sort of thing. I did get a couple of jobs, but then I had one guy expose himself at me because he was having a bad day. And I was given data entry jobs and I found them so boring, but I didn't have that ability to step up and say, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do a variety of things. I need to do a variety of things. I'm a hands-on person. I don't want to sit here and do data entry. It's so boring.
Yeah.
And do that all day, every day.
Were you able to maintain these jobs, or did you find because of your health barriers you were forced out or you weren't able to progress?
I could keep the jobs. The best job I had was I worked in a youth employment scheme sort of thing. And what happened was, it's all right, I'm just diving over to get a hat. I'll try and do this. I just had my hat off for sensory thing.
Yeah.
Hang on a tick. Here we go. That's better. So what had happened was I was meant to do administration and in a primary school, and I ended up just being with the kids because that's who I was. I was a kid at the time, so I was doing dance classes and everything, and I couldn't count money or anything like that, and couldn't dress up properly either. I didn't feel comfortable getting all dressed up. And then somehow they'd had enough of me at the school, so I moved on to this other place where I was just doing data entry and stuff. And because of the incident with the guy exposing himself to me and blaming me, and I got the blame for everything because he was just having a bad day, etc., I got moved to this a building in the city, which was it's now 35 years old. Beautiful, and you could see all around town and watch all the trains around going from Flinders Street to Southern Cross and vice versa. And I ended up in the mailroom. And I don't know how I had all the energy back then, but I worked 5 days a week from 9 till 5:30 and came back 4:30 and got the 10 to 5 train home. But I always throwing big mail bags into Toyota Hiace vans and stuff. And that lasted till early 1988. And then I struggled to find employment for quite a long time. And then I was doing a life journey after that. And then I was working on the school crossing for my previous council. Did that for 20 years. Had some highs and lows from that. Had some lovely bosses who understood me because I just told one I had, Asperger's or autism back then. That job lasted 20 years.
Can you tell me about when you were diagnosed? How did that change things for you? Was life different after receiving your diagnosis?
Yes, it was. It made me feel so much better, so much happier. But then I felt bad because I was saying some things I didn't intentionally wanting to do, but things would always come out the wrong way that I didn't mean to say in the first place. So if someone was black, for example, had black skin or black hair, or had Chinese eyes, from a Chinese background, why are your eyes like they are? Or why is your skin black? Why aren't you like me? And it was just like understanding all these things that I didn't know, or hurting someone saying you're an idiot. But I was the idiot because I didn't fit in. I was always told that I was a square peg in a round hole, and even fitting into organisations, and even doing my life journey through churches. And it was a real struggle because I was the one who didn't fit in, and then I realised that, and it was me, not the other people. It was actually me, and people didn't like me because of who I was back then. And sometimes they still don't now, But
also, do you think the awareness of autism or Asperger's back then would be nowhere near what it is today? So people didn't understand the challenges that you were facing?
So I think the challenges now, even today, a lot of people still don't understand or don't want to accept people on the spectrum, or people in disability, or people with disabilities or diffabilities, as I call them, different abilities, are always denied the opportunity and chance to do things. But a lot of people with disabilities are now fighting back, and they are the ones that are making the real difference to society. Look at the Autism National Road Plan that's happening, and a lot of people with autism and just other people with disabilities are working together with these departments to make a difference. I'm involved with another organisation that's never even had a diversity inclusion plan, and that goes for another couple of years. But my views and everything and everyone else's are making a real difference to train and educate parishes, church parishes in the Anglican diocese here in Melbourne, to understand and educate them on different people's disabilities. But we have what's called a friendship club, which a lot of people with disabilities used to attend, but we still have some who are regulars. And we had a couple of series on neurodiversity. And it was so good because then a lot of people came out with what they had. One had bipolar, one had ADHD, one was diagnosed at the age of 66 or 67. It's just phenomenal. I had a speech on autism, or, my life and what God did for me. So that just made a real difference. It just opened up so many doors, and it was like a spider web that just all of a sudden parted, and everyone was just open about it, and it was really good. So
did it make it much easier being able to connect with people with similar experiences?
Yeah, the diagnosis changed me big time. So I started a life journey, and then I started to write The Goal, which was the first course book. And I had a computer in my room. Somehow, I don't know how I ended up with it. I just wanted a computer because we had a good old Packard Bell, and I used that a lot, and the good old dial-up internet back then.
Yeah. And so what is The Goal? Sorry, is that the first book you authored?
Yeah, so that was just a book, and I just sat there and I said to Mum, I feel like I'm going to write something. And I'd always felt ashamed of myself because I wasn't like other people that went into full-time jobs and came home and they had to, they were in a regular routine and everything, and I wasn't like that. But then gradually over time, I think, yeah, this is me. I have to accept what I'm doing and not living in the shoes of others. So I sat down at the computer and just literally regurgitated, I don't know where it came from or what happened, but I just was learning about comfort zones and reconciliation and dealing with a problem, which was mine, which was the Asperger's back then, and basing it on a swimming pool and a freight train. And the swimming pool was 10 kilometres deep or even 100 kilometres deep. And the dream was that there was a baby in nappies tied up in chains, and I was that baby, and I literally had to go and find myself, and I fished out this baby in the pool, and everyone was clapping me, but no one was sort of helping me. And then I ended up being sucked down the hole with all the water. And that's where that darkness came. And that's where all that vision came for me writing this particular book. And I was taking baby steps at a time. Oh, it was such a big bloody project. It took me 2 years to write this particular book. So this book came out and I finished it and became clear. And we did a trip to Ararat to see my uncle's wife. And they went across the club and I said, look, I'm going to just take some photos. So I took a photo of the heated pool and it still had the cover on it and everything. And that was the 6th chapter. Is it like you want to get out of the pool and stay under the warm cover, or do you want to actually get dressed and go out and face your fears, face your problems sort of thing? And came out with a clear pool. And the freight train means that the trains from your capital city over there, Perth, comes over here and vice versa. And they'll only do single stack because of all the bridges from Melbourne to Adelaide and the hills and everything. And the more locos you have, the more wagons you're pulling, the more freight you're carrying in your life sort of thing. So the more locos you have, the heavier your life is and the more loading you have on there and stuff like that. So that became that book. And then I started to become a positive person. I'm thinking, yeah, okay. So I wrote the power of positivity, but I saw the negativity of what people did. Alcohol, drugs, pokies, family violence was another one. I'm not sure if I put in there or not. Arguments. Life is just so toxic. And I put that in and I wanted to change into a positive person. And this was a 4-part series, etc. So I wrote that. And then I did another course in 2008 called A Leadership Plus, and that's when I wrote the Aspectism for Teens and Adults. That followed on by...
What was that one called, sorry?
Aspectism for Teens and Adults, and that's available on my website.
Yep.
And I just revamped that last year. Then I wrote 2 employment ones called Workism. Well, now they're called Employeeism, one for families, family edition, and one for companies, which is like the company edition, employers to employ someone with autism spectrum.
Are you able to talk to us more about that book, the Employeeism?
Employeeism, yep. So the family one is more going to be finding a job, keeping a job, and being onboarded. I'm hoping I can have these out by the end of May, early June.
Was it because of your challenges, I guess, trying to find employment, which led to the birth of your business, Ktalk? Can you tell us a bit more about the vision behind Ktalk and how this venture come to life?
So I started my business in 2007 because I was working on the crossing, but I wanted something more meaningful and felt like I could give back to the community. So I did a business course at this particular TAFE. Again, it was quite good. So then when I had written The Goal and the Power of Positivity, I went to a former CEO and she said these books should be sold online. A lot of people should benefit from these. Some of the books have been sold overseas. I think a couple went to Malaysia and met a couple over in Blackburn, which is in our eastern suburbs. I think some went to New Zealand, but I'm not sure. So the autism ones were very popular back then. I ran them in a local neighbourhood house and they were very hot and in demand, and a lot of teachers and parents and carers came to those. That was 2008. I did the Aspectism for Teens and Adults, and then that followed on by the 2 employment ones, which I'm now developing, which was Workism back then. And then there was one for kids. So I'm about to write one later on this year called Autism and Mental Health. So that's going to be take a big chunk of the market that's been missing. So I really wasn't doing much. And about 2013, I decided I had to cease because people wanted to have psychologists with pieces of paper, etc. So I shut my business down. 2014, I think I shut it down. And it was only shut 8 years. And I got this incredible urge to go back to it. I felt like it's got to be something there. And then in 23, I joined what was called Speakers Bank, which is part of a NECDO. And then I was just hooked. And I did this in front of about 10 people. But then I made a lot of friends and a lot of connections from those, and I gave them my details, and then just decided to find a company that would redevelop the courses last year. And this I decided, yep, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life and target so many people, and it gives me something to do rather than finding something to do. And I've just been very unsuccessful in employment, trying to find jobs and trying to compete with others, and I was sick of it. So it was making me really, really tired. And I'm thinking, what if I could help a lot more people with the course books that I've done, and I'll start becoming an international person. There was another advocate called Donna Williams, and she became an international speaker. And I do mine virtually, where she was doing hers physically during her time of being an international speaker. But also she ran her own business as well. So Ktalk was born in 23, and I went back to my old contact list and let people know I was up and running, because initially I sat there and just worked on so many schools around Australia and finding lists and getting the word out there and going on radio on the ABC when I was 40.
Yeah.
And then people just started to get to know me. So
and you deliver autism awareness training as well? Yes,
I do, yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about your training and what participants can expect to learn throughout the program?
Well, it all depends on what they want to learn, is what I will put in a training session for them. So if they say, we want to know how to handle kids on the spectrum, or we want to know more about autism itself, then I'll put that particular topic of interest in. So on my website, it just says what you want me to do, what topics you want to learn, and then I'll put in particular topic of interest. So I've got one here on autism and employment.
What will participants learn throughout that course?
Oh, here's one called Embracing Neurodiversity, which I did last year. Yeah, last
Beacon
year.
University.
Yep. So I give a brief introduction about myself, bullying and discrimination. So I had to be like a Mr. Humphreys from Are You Being Served to be accepted, but again, I was laughed at school. What's the difference between Asperger's syndrome? Well, now it's no longer considered a standalone diagnosis. It was named after the Austrian paediatrician Hans Asperger, who struggled to form friendships, did not understand gestures or feelings, engaged in one-sided conversations about their favourite interests, and were clumsy. So I was told I was clumsy and stupid as well by a lot of them. Then I tell them how to understand their clients. So that's just one of them that I've done. So this autism employment one, the family edition, is going to be getting a job, identifying what the job is, working with Inclusive Australia. We're setting up an email for life, having an interview, doing a dummy run for the person with ASD, navigating public transport, being employed in the workplace, making lunch for work, banking tax file and super account, declaring all changes to Centrelink, and then being onboarded, what to expect in that area. So that's just one of the courses that I'm writing.
That sounds fantastic. And what do you think are some of the main challenges that people on the autism spectrum just sort of face when it comes to finding employment?
Them being acknowledged, being accepted and being understood, and people's expectations of their behaviour, understanding the unwritten rules of the workplace, how to behave appropriately in the workplace, how to be socialising in the workplace, how to learn not to say the wrong things in the workplace and taking over sometimes. It's just understanding that behaviour. So if the person with autism is galloping around the office, is that appropriate, or stimming because the lights are too bright? How do you make reasonable adjustments for someone who's working in a workplace that they can't tolerate fluorescent lights, etc., or stimming?
Can you explain to me a bit more what is stimming?
Stimming can be a number of actions that a person does. For me, like instance, repeating a word or an action. when you get excited, your arms go up and you shake your fist sort of thing that you're excited about something.
Yeah.
Mum says to me the other night, what are you doing? And I'm just going, just blowing those raspberries or,
Yep.
That's like yelling with your hand.
And that's stimming.
Or it could be just rocking or whoop, whoop, whoop. So I can even do that at church sometimes. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Just silly noises like that. But nobody understands that's my way of stimming.
Yeah. And I guess in
Nobody
the workplace, if people aren't aware of what you're doing or they don't understand what you're doing, they could misinterpret your behaviour.
So when I did the referendum last year, we worked till 7 o'clock. I got in my car, went, woo, really, really loud. And I did that for about 20 minutes. I was like a siren on a car or a police car or something. Woo, whoop, 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 just to release myself from all those people and everything.
Is that a stress reliever or help you to sort of feel more comfortable in an environment?
Yeah, I think it is, because then I was exhausted and then, I settled down after that. I was quite tired, so it took me a few days to process that.
And how do you think we can remove these additional barriers that autistic people face in the workplace?
Education and training, learning more about autism in the workplace. That's why I'm here to do all that kind of stuff. That's why my courses are here. That's why I want to write the courses, because I want to remove as many barriers as possible, as much as I can, to help people to understand it's not easy living with a disability. It's not easy living even with autism, even a mild form of autism, because you're facing these everyday things. You've got to be part of life. And sometimes when you come home and you've had a busy day and you come home and you prepare tea or you go and get something for tea, like on a Friday night or something, takeaway, and you go to bed and it's just, and you've got to get away from things sometimes. You've got to have a break.
Yeah, definitely.
So it can be quite difficult to live with a mental disorder, and particularly for me, I wish that I never had it sometimes. I wish that I could have been normal and I would have lived a better life, etc., and been more successful. But I've been successful in what I'm doing now, and that's what I plan to do.
That's what you're passionate about it, and it sounds like you're doing something that's got a lot of purpose and meaning behind it, where you can, I guess, help other people have better experiences in their workplace throughout their life.
Yeah, so that's why I want to deliver this autism awareness training, and I want people to know who I am to a degree.
Have you had a lot of success with Ktalk? Can you share some of the organisations that you've presented your training to?
Yep, I've done Victorian Autism Conferences, Ballarat Autism Expo. I was an exhibitor at that event. Read, Thrive, Learn Literacy Expo. That was in Pakenham. Community houses, mental health networks. I've taught basic word courses at Kinglake Rangers neighbourhood houses. Back in 2012, I went to a TAFE and told everyone about my life story. I've been to schools. I've been to mental health groups, conferences in Brisbane and Townsville back in 2009. Run my courses, mental health networks in Altona. Went down the beach while I was there. Mum got a bit jealous. Primary schools, strategy in the classroom for kids with ASD. Employment workshop in Bairnsdale, so that's East Gippsland. So that employment courses was dealing with Centrelink, which at the time, going for job interview, disclosure of disability, teamwork and taking instruction, conflict in the workplace, job hunting and the person with ASD, making lunch for work, and tips for successful employment, which is like an orientation thing, which I'm doing now. Churches, presented to leaders of a youth group, social anxiety, communication, special interest in people with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. I've spoken internationally. I do things virtually, so I'll sit here and I'll do a presentation. Got one coming up in Orlando, Florida in October, one in Japan.
That's exciting.
A couple I've already done in Singapore, Bali, Indonesia. Spoke at a disability expo.
It sounds like you've got an extensive list of speaking engagements you've completed. It sounds quite an incredible record you've done there.
Too many. Too many.
If I could circle back to finish off, I know at the moment, the unemployment rate for a person on the autism spectrum is sitting at about 31.6%. Why do you think it is that people are afraid to give a person who is autistic an opportunity?
I think it's their own fear, because in another experience that I've had back in 2008, I saw people who were unable to communicate, who were unable to walk, who were requiring them to feed them and to take them to the toilet. And I looked at myself and thought, I don't have a disability. But then I didn't realise that I did have a disability or a disability. Mine was more mental. Mine was neurological. It was hidden. I was scared of those people with disabilities. I was scared of participating and being amongst them in a group. But then I learned that they just saw me as who I was back then, and they just readily accepted me. But the people who couldn't walk, they had what was called dyno riders, or text-to-speech sort of thing. So they used a machine, and one even typed with his nose
Wow.
the letters about what he wanted to speak, and the brains behind these people were just incredible. I think and feel that people are just too afraid to associate with people with disabilities, because the word disability is a vulgar term, a derogatory term for putting a person down, because they feel that they're not capable of doing things, and they're unable to communicate or socialise. It's because of what other people's opinions and what other people say matter to them, rather than using their own judgment and their own confidence to approach a person with autism, such as myself or someone like myself, and saying, yes, I'll give you a go. Let me help you get employed. Let me help you change your life, and let me help you make a better life for yourself. And I want to make you feel good about yourself as well. Instead of the common barriers for people with not only disabilities or diffabilities, but the common people with autism, it's people have to see things physically, like someone in a wheelchair, and see what they can do and what they can't do, to see what they can do and give them a chance. Someone with autism, they can't see that. It's hidden in their brains. You don't accept me for who I am just because I've got the label or name on me of autism or Asperger's or whatever. So I feel that autistic people are not understood correctly. I feel that they're judged harshly. There are people like me who don't have those difficulties. They don't have those problems. It's only because I can't work full time. It causes me information overload. I'm very happy to work part time. I'm very happy to contribute and achieve your business goals the way you want them to, or that you've never dreamed of before. But I just want to be given a chance, because you don't understand me. You don't see what I'm seeing and what I'm living, rather than what you're living yourself as a person who's non-neurodivergent or is non-disabled or doesn't have a disability like I do. So autistic people can do specific things. There is a program called Aurora. It's made by Employ for Ability, but they're mainly IT programming or cyber security jobs. Some people are only able to do administration or specific tasks. So I think there's got to be a lot of awareness and education, kind of like blowing up a big hole, like a mine, blowing up that mine and digging far deep down to reveal what autistic people can do. And you'll see the gold and diamonds and the gems, but one who's got multiple colours in them, that's the prism that they should be digging out the most.
Person
I
can
can't
bring
think.
unique perspectives to a business. And I think a lot of the barriers that people with disabilities face in the workplace and in the community and life in general are created by people without disabilities and don't have an understanding of what other people are experiencing. So I think, like you're doing, going out and educating people from your own point of view, from the point of view of someone with lived experience, is the way that we start to create change.
And that's what needs to happen. But I think you are right. That is right. People who don't have that lived experience don't understand what people with lived experience go through every day, each day they live. But also, being autistic can have its benefits rather than its disillusions or the negativity, because people only see the negativity in others. They don't see the positivity in
And
others.
what would you say are the benefits?
High attention to detail is one. High thorough of a task. So for me, I do double the workload of anyone else that can do. If I'm super duper focused on that task, I'll go out of my way and go higher and above and beyond to do as much research in that to complete that particular task. And that's kind of like therapy, because I like to put everything I can into that particular task. Loyalness, faithfulness, reliability, and that person will keep to that routine. They won't take a day off work, even though they're allocated holidays. That's their routine. That's what they like to stick to. So they like to keep that structural routine going and happening as long as they possibly can. So if you have someone set in that motion, they're able to do a lot of work in that workday.
Well, Kerryn, thank you very much for coming on today and sharing your journey with us, your experience and your challenges trying to find employment. I do wish you all the success with your business, Ktalk. It sounds like you're doing some incredible things, and I'm sure it's going to go a long way to creating more opportunities for people who are autistic and have faced similar challenges that you have.
That's okay.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Kerryn, and you have a bit more awareness and understanding of what it might be like to be trying to find a job or to be able to participate in the community for a person who does live with autism. As always, to find out more information about anything we discuss, please refer to the links in the show notes.